Last week we had Stephen Mnuchin here in the studio talking about his plans for tax reform. Tell us your thoughts on that in terms of passage. Do you think we will in fact see tax reform in 17?
Yes. And why I say that, remember, Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution says all tax reform starts in the House. We did not wait in this House for tax reform for the new election. We already put a plan out in a better way that is close to what President-elect Donald Trump's plan is about. We're already having those discussions now. You will find during Christmas break when people leave Washington, Ways and Means will stay here. Work on that plan now so we can hit the ground running. We want to make sure we get it right, that it's fair, that there's only 3 rates, that you actually let people keep more of what they earn. You let America's businesses to be competitive. And when they're competitive around the world, you let them bring the money back home so they invest back in their businesses with repatriation. So there's a lot of things we can do to make America better.
Yeah, I mean, tax reform is an important one, and do you think that that will move the needle on economic growth? I mean, connect the dots for us, because, you know, Mnuchin came here last week and talked about 3.5% to 4% economic growth. Is that doable very soon into the new administration?
That is doable, but you've got to set the foundation to make it happen. Look, we have big problems in America, and we can't get out of them if we don't grow this economy. That's the number one. We've got to have job growth, economic growth. And the factor to make that happen is tax reform. That is one of the core central points. That's why you see us working so hard on it. It is going to be accomplished in 2017, and you're going to see the fruits of this for generations to come.
But of course, the skeptics keep bringing up the cost of it. So I understand if you get economic growth, that pays for some of it. But how do you pay for such a huge tax cut for business and individuals?
Well, you know what? I've always believed individuals are better with their money than government. And it's proven time and time again. Look, the middle class is worth less today than they were 8 years ago. The best thing we can do is grow this economy. The only way we'll get out of our debt is to control our spending but grow the economy. We cannot afford not to do it. Economic growth, we've got to be back at 3 and 4%. To make sure that this is the place to be for the next century.
So should we not be worried about the impact on the deficit over the near term then, Congressman?
The only way we're going to get out of this deficit is if we have economic growth more than 4%. Look, you've got a new sheriff in town with Donald Trump. He's going to be able to keep eyes on spending. You've got a House that's able to control from what one part of the spending level. We got to deal with the mandatory side as well. But if we don't grow the economy, we'll never get out of this problem.
What are your expectations in terms of military spending? You know, Donald Trump has talked a lot about expanding the military, a focus on veterans and a focus on our men and women on the ground overseas. Give us your sense of what we should expect in terms of change.
Well, first thing you're going to see a change is there's 2 places to look. One, those veterans that have already served. The VA is broken. And we have it doubled the size of the spending when it comes to the VA. I just don't think it's efficient in what we're doing in that manner. We have to restructure that where it looks after the veteran itself. And I'll guarantee you that that's going to happen. Secondly, you've got to make sure you have the military, the investment now, so when they have to go to battle, or if they ever have to go, that it's decisive and over very quickly. That means the R&D investment. And we're living off the investments that were made decades ago. We have not had that in quite some time. So we're going to look at that, restructure it, and that means actually reforms when it comes to the Pentagon as well, making your dollar go further. But technology has always kept America ahead of every other nation. And we'll take whatever it needs to make sure America is safe and we keep the world in a stabilization that we need.
So we're spending there, and we're spending obviously on the tax cuts, and then there's the infrastructure plan, Congressman. Do you expect that we are going to spend $1 trillion on infrastructure?
Look, I know people throw a lot of numbers out. The one thing I always look at infrastructure, it is important, but most important is that you pay for it. And we have an old infrastructure, so there's good investments, but I think you don't have to look at it the way we've looked at the past, right? What about public-private partnerships? What about enhancing the ability for the private sector to invest? But also, more importantly, we pass roads, but they don't get built for a decade because of the environmental studies that you have to do compounded upon it. Can't we streamline it so you get the benefit of the investment early, you get a public-private partnership so it's paid for, and you don't have the burdensome on government, but you have the benefit and the synergy of everybody involved?
Does it feel different to you, the way it looks, Congressman? I mean, you've got all houses, you've got both chambers, you've got the presidency. Characterize what you're seeing there in Washington for this new government.
You know what? It seems like a new day. And you see it on your show every day. Look at where the market's at. Look at the attitude of America. They know there is a window, there's an opportunity to make America great again, but we also know what's on our shoulders. We cannot miss this window of opportunity for this generation and the next. We have to set the framework so the next century is the American century. And I believe we can do it. I think it's tax reform, regulatory reform, health care reform, and looking at our military and the VA.
Sounds like you're about to get a lot of things done, Congressman. We'll be watching. We so appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Congressman Kevin McCarthy joining us this morning.